my God. What did I just witness? The Warriors were down by 24 points early in that third quarter. They were down by 24 points. More nonsense Steve Kerr decisions early on. Everything just looked super bleak. It didn't matter that Jimmy Butler was now on board. Nothing looked right. Kerr's playing that nonsensical 3-guard lineup with no POA on the floor, to the ground, Steph Curry, Pajemski, and Buddy Hield at the same time, with Quinton Post trying to anchor that. I mean, it is just preposterous, and I am feeling more hopeless than ever. And then next thing you know, Steve Kerr decides to make adjustments. Steph Curry starts to let it fly, and he gets going. And within the span of 8 minutes or so, the Warriors easily erase a 24-point deficit. And as the game went on, the Warriors eventually went on to lead by as much as 25 points. They were down by 24 points, and then they were up 25 points. I can't remember the last time I saw something like that. And who exactly was this guy in the second half that was coaching the Warriors? Because it sure didn't really look like Steve Kerr. And mind you, this is just one game against a relatively lowly team in the Chicago Bulls. But the Warriors have shown they are capable of losing against any team. Any team. Just a couple of games ago, they lost an 11-point lead to the Utah Jazz in the final 3 minutes of the game. Anything is possible when it comes to the Warriors. But oh man, did we get a glimpse of this new dynamic duo. It felt like a new era had just started tonight. Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. Simply unreal. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel as always. If you like what you've heard so far, be sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and hit that like button. Now let's get back straight to it. It's been quite a while since Steph Curry has scored 20 points in a single quarter. He used to do that with regularity. I believe he leads the NBA all time in 20 points or more scored in a single quarter. And the thing about that is it can only happen if you give Steph Curry enough minutes in any given quarter. The thing is, he used to play 12-6, 12-6. That was his rotational minutes. 12 minutes in the first quarter and 12 minutes in the third quarter. And these are the quarters where he can go on these crazy flurries. But they took that away from him in the 21-22 season. That's the season when Steph Curry struggled for like 3 straight months. And yes, it's pretty hard to get a bunch of 20-point quarters when you're only allowed to play 7 or 8 minutes per quarter. And it's really crazy to me, the Warriors took away something that was utterly working for them for like a decade. And then they just took it away from them, saying that Steph Curry is all old now. But that was like 3-4 years ago. So I just feel like internally, this Warriors team, Steve Kerr, always finds a way to diminish the effectiveness of Steph Curry and a lot of players on this team over the years. But when Steve Kerr does something right, I'm always going to give the guy credit. You know, when the season started earlier and the Warriors were going crazy, they were the best team in the NBA with that 12-3 record. I was saying that Steve Kerr was in line to become the coach of the year this season. You know, the guy is absolutely awful and dreadful, but whenever he does do something right, I'm always going to give him credit. The thing about him doing the right things in any given game is that he almost always, scratch that, always has a tendency to revert back to his old ways. And that's always been the problem with this guy. But tonight, Steph Curry was going crazy in that third quarter. He could not miss. He was on a heater. And Steve Kerr decided to leave Steph Curry on the floor for pretty much that entire third quarter, which was pretty awesome to see. You all know that Steve Kerr has a tendency to ice out Steph Curry when he gets going, when he gets hot. But not tonight. He let him stay on the floor, and Steph was just on a different planet. And he was in that flow. When Steph Curry is in that flow state, he is the greatest show on planet Earth. Nobody can stop this guy. And it's that show that made me fall in love with his game and the Warriors. And that's why I have been tuning in all this time, trying to witness great basketball, amazing basketball, a circus show. Which is what Steph Curry is capable of if you use him correctly and if you give him the time to get into his flow state with his teammates looking for him and prioritizing him. If they use methods like this with regularity, the Warriors would always be a top 5 offense in the league. Steph Curry, when given the opportunity, is the greatest point generator in NBA history. Nobody can match what he does from the three-point line, creating his own shots, coming off the curls, coming off the screens, moving without the ball, on the ball, all of it. Mix it all together. And the other team becomes completely vulnerable because the other team has no way of stopping this unstoppable force. And then there's Jimmy Butler. Wow, I knew he was a guy. I knew this is a guy that can just drag a bunch of nobodies to the finals. And I'm talking about the second time he did that. The first time he did it, the Heat had a blend of great talents on the roster. Goran Dragic, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Andre Iguodala, all kinds of guys. The second time around, the guy took Caleb Martin, Max Strus, however you say his name, and Gabe freaking Vincent and got all the way to the finals, man. The guy is different. The guy has an aura about him. And this is something I mentioned when they initially got him. But Jimmy Butler gets half of his field goal attempts at the rim. Yeah, half of his shots come from the rim. This guy is an inside player. And you can see that he actually has gravity down there. The guy was getting double teamed in the post and he can find guys who are wide open. And when the Warriors are getting wide open looks because a great player has penetrated the defense and has the other team's defense scrambling, that's when those three-point shots that the Warriors take look completely different. And Jimmy's got a different build, man. The guy is 230 pounds and he can legitimately play power forward. Thank God, because as I predicted, Steve Kerr would immediately put Jimmy Butler into the power forward spot. And it didn't take him very long to do that. But in that first half, it wasn't working. Why? Because the lineup was Steph Curry, Potts, Buddy Hield, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond. I just don't think that there is a single duo unit that can handle a three-guard lineup like that with no ability to contest shots, no ability to keep guys in front of them, and the defense is being completely broken down. It could look so different if you simply replaced Buddy Hield with somebody else. And you certainly cannot expect Quentin Post to protect a lineup that has three guards that have no capable ability to defend anybody out in the perimeter. They're getting burned, they can't contest anything, and they're getting scored on left and right. Trace Jackson can't do anything about that, and Quentin Post certainly can't do anything about that. But my goodness, Jimmy Butler has serious game in the post. The guy was getting fouled left and right. He has an innate ability to draw fouls as he's going to the rim. And he's not some foul baiter. He's actually getting fouled. And well, to anybody and everybody who has ever wanted that legit second option next to Steph Curry, we just got a glimpse of what that looks like in this game. 13 free throws for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was 7 of 12 from the field and he scored 25 points in just 29 minutes. Steph Curry, after struggling for so long with that thumb injury, was again in that flow state and just looked completely different in that second half. The first half was beyond frustrating. Steph Curry took 6 shots. Jimmy Butler took 6 shots. And Buddy Hield took 11 shots in that first half. I was losing my mind. What are the Warriors doing? What are they running? And how are you prioritizing Buddy Hield over both Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry? Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry have 12 combined shots in the first half. Buddy Hield alone has 11 shot attempts, and the Warriors are stinking up the floor. And to begin that second half, Steve Kerr once again started the exact same lineup that was doing nothing in the first half. Next thing you know, the Chicago Bulls are on a 14-4 run to begin that third quarter. And the Warriors are down 25 points in the blink of an eye. So about 2.5 minutes passes by and Steve Kerr decides to bench Post and bring in Moses Moody. And now the lineup is Steph Curry, Potts, Moody, Butler, and Draymond. And again, the fact that Jimmy Butler has that size about him, 230 pounds, we've seen him play power forward with the Heat before. Like I said, when they ran that small lineup of Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. Smaller lineups can work if the pieces can hold their ground defensively. And that's been a problem for the Warriors for so long since they lost Otto Porter Jr. As I have been saying ad nauseum, Andrew Wiggins cannot play the 4, and Jonathan Kuminga is also not equipped to play the 4 because he doesn't have enough experience, he doesn't know how to be physical, and he doesn't know what it entails to play that power forward position. But Jimmy Butler does. And it's looking like that's going to potentially open up those small lineups that once upon a time was so successful for the Warriors. The tiny lineups will never work, but small lineups where it's Steph Curry and a bunch of wings around him, guys that are at least 6'5" and up, and not 3 guys on the floor that are 6'4" and under, it can look completely different. If the Warriors can blend in some of those smaller lineups, but also utilize a bunch of big lineups along the way, and this is something that Steve Kerr did pretty much for all of the fourth quarter, when they basically held the Bulls to no points. They ultimately ended up scoring 17 points with some buckets in garbage time, but the Bulls failed to score a single point in the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. This team didn't know what hit them, and they were just so flabbergasted nobody could hit a shot. And they scored 4 points in the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, and that's all she wrote. The Warriors in the second half went on a 56-13 run. 56-13 run. That is a 41-point advantage. And that is how you go from being down 24 to being up 25. And I gotta show you some of the lineups that were being used in that fourth quarter. As you guys know, I've been saying for a long time that Guy Santos' actual natural position is actually at the 3. Is he capable of also playing the 4? Yes, he is. He's a tweener, but he is a stretch 4, and he can do that job. But he can also play the 3. And Steve Kerr actually put both Jimmy Butler and Guy Santos at the 3 in the fourth quarter. Even in garbage time, he went to Jackson Rowe at the small 4 spot. Literally the entire fourth quarter, he played a big lineup with a big guy at small forward next to actual power forwards and centers. And when the lineups look like that and everybody is playing their natural positions, even Quentin Post felt like a sense of relief, and he started to hit his shots and felt really comfortable and way more confident out there. If Steve Kerr wants to run smaller lineups, Quentin Post cannot be the anchor of this team. He can't do it. He's a rookie, he's inexperienced, and he's not a very good protector inside the paint area. And the only reason I'm taking it easy on him right now is because he showed up in that fourth quarter. But from a defensive standpoint, the guy really was doing nothing for the first 3 quarters. I think this is a guy that you use off the bench in a pinch when you might be looking for some extra shooting against certain teams. But long term, if you want the Warriors defense to be as strong as possible moving forward, they're really better off going with the rotation of Kevon Looney and Trey Jackson-Davis, so that they don't go on these crazy lulls where the Warriors have to climb back from being down 24 points. Do you know what you call that? You call that a handicap. Why do you have to overcome a handicap constantly? Why can't you just be strong across the board from the get-go? But yes, this second half was something to behold. Steph Curry looked like he had a new injection of energy with Jimmy Butler by his side. People were concerned about Jimmy Butler in a lot of different ways, but I really wasn't concerned that he was going to be a problem in the locker room, other than questioning and challenging Steve Kerr if he's doing ridiculous things. But the guy is versatile in so many different ways, so dynamic. There's just nothing goofy or anything like that about him. He's just a strong player across the board. You know, you look at a guy like Andrew Wiggins, and Wiggins has very specific skill sets that he's really good at, and he developed into a really good 3-point shooter over the years, especially this year. And needless to say, he's one of the best POAs in the league. But he has some coordination issues. He goes into the paint, misses a bunch of layups, loses the ball for no reason in transition, and does these little goofy things. And due to his size, he has limitations in terms of, playing both the small forward and the power forward position. He doesn't have that level of versatility. And to be honest, that should be okay. You should be able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of your players and make sure that you keep them where they're strong, instead of also trying to utilize that player where they're weak. And that's Steve Kerr's biggest problem as a coach, is putting players in suboptimal positions and weakening their abilities by putting them in these positions to fail. But with Jimmy Butler, he has so much versatility. He can play the shooting guard spot, he can play the small forward, and he can play the power forward. And he's no Andrew Wiggins in terms of POA ability. He only has a 6'8" wingspan. The guy is 6'7", and he has a 6'8" wingspan. So he's not exactly a picture perfect player, but oh my goodness, there's not a lot of holes in his game. You know, the one thing that he doesn't really do is shoot a whole lot of threes, and I'm okay with that. The Warriors have enough guys that want to shoot threes all day and night. That first half, they were doing nothing but chucking up threes. And a lot of times, that's just not going to work. You have to be able to blend in actions where you're getting easy buckets inside the paint. Being able to get easy buckets inside the paint gives you the confidence to also shoot outside. You gotta play inside out, not outside all day and night. That's unserious. That is called a jump shooting team, as Charles Barkley always likes to say. If Steve Kerr can optimize that starting lineup, and well, we'll see what happens because Kuminga will be back soon enough, probably after the All-Star break. And with Butler on board, we don't have to worry about Kuminga being at the 4 anymore, and he's just a much stronger player when you put him at the 3. So then maybe you can run a lineup like Steph Curry, Moses Moody, Kuminga, Butler, and Draymond. And maybe on nights when JK doesn't have it going, maybe you can run a lineup like Steph Curry, Potts, Moody, whatever, which one you want to take your pick, Jimmy Butler, Guy Santos, and Draymond Green. Maybe if you want more defense, you could even run a lineup like Steph Curry, GP2, Jimmy Butler, Guy Santos, Draymond Green. Or if you just want athletes across the board, you could run something like Steph Curry, GP2, Jonathan Kuminga, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. Yes, this is how much variations that you can use can open up when you have an actual guy that can play the power forward position next to Draymond Green. It looks completely different. When you're trying to force that and try to put guys at the power forward position that can't play that position, can't hold ground, can't rebound, can't box out, can't set screens, then the basic fundamentals of trying to execute whatever you're trying to do doesn't work because you don't have the prerequisite pieces that can take care of basic business. And you can clearly see that Jimmy Butler is a super sound basketball player. Again, very little weaknesses. But again, it really all comes back down to what lineups that Steve Kerr is going to choose to run at the end of the day. He can run nonsensical lineups and nonsensical offense that can make the Warriors look worse than the Chicago Bulls. And then he can do a whole bunch of other stuff that makes them look like they are 10 times better than the Bulls. This is why when people say that the Warriors have a roster construction issue, I'm not buying it. Because the Warriors have championship caliber pieces on this team. If you run the correct units and if you run the correct combinations, they look like a brand new team. This game is literally the perfect example. The Warriors go from looking like absolute dog water to looking like one of the best teams in the league. The contrast is simply insane. They score 55 points in the first half. They score 77 points in the second half. Conversely, the Bulls score 69 points in the first half and then score 42 points in the second half. You see how these lineups affect both ends of the floor? And you see why I get so upset when Steve chooses to use nonsensical lineups that makes the Warriors look so much worse than they actually are. And then tonight in the second half, the guy makes complete and utter sense, leaves the hot guy, his superstar, on the floor while he's on a heater, lets him play the entire third quarter, and the Warriors are able to erase a 24-point deficit in the blink of an eye, and then proceeds to go to giant lineups that is just completely shutting the water off of the Bulls. I really don't know where that version of Steve Kerr came from. But if that guy can stay for the remainder of the season, well, the Warriors have 30 games left and this could look like a brand new season. Or, knowing who Steve Kerr is, we can continue to see the constant handicaps that they have to overcome. But once Jonathan Kuminga comes back into the picture, I would imagine that the 3-guard lineups would be more limited because Kuminga is a forward and he needs to be on the floor. And again, Jimmy Butler has injected new life into me personally. It's only been one game, but we just got a glimpse of just how good and just how capable this team could be. Stay tuned because this is just the beginning. Thank you so much for watching. As always, until next time.